Hello. So time for another Pixar movie. So this one is going to be me talking about Cars 3, which is came out in 2017. It's kind of the finale to the Cars series. Although I mean, kind of the way they end it, like I can go off on this at the end of the movie, but kind of the way that they end the movie kind of could lead into them doing something else with it. Doing something else in a continuation. I mean, like they've already done Toy Story 4. I don't know if they can do a Cars 4, but I don't know, maybe they'll come up with something, but we'll see, but I'll talk about that at the end of the movie or at the end of the video. As with the original movie about Cars, this of course centers, of course, around Lightning McQueen, as opposed to the sequel movie Cars 2, that kind of centered more around Mater, with McQueen still being there, but he's not quite as as prominent in the movie as Mater is, which is fine. And we see this over the time. We kind of see like a time lapse at the beginning of the movie a little bit, or kind of jump cuts here and there a little bit, because it's like we kind of start the movie off very similar to how the original movie started off, with Lightning doing his I am fast, I am speed speech that he does, and then he's just like, did I really used to talk like that? And he's just like befuddled by the fact that he used to talk like that, because like he's come so far during that time frame in from between the end of the first movie, between the beginning of the first movie and the end of the first movie, he makes this huge switch in regards to priorities and his, in the way that the type of racer that he wants to be. And then of course, over the second movie, we still see that Lightning has continued to become better and better. He still has like his ego, of course, because he is Lightning McQueen and he's, the best race car in his opinion, of course. But we still kind of have that there. And in this one, we kind of see at the beginning of it, the beginning of the movie is, still during, Lightning is still, the top of his game. He's, it's like him and like there's like two other cars that are kind of like his two main rivals at the time. One of them, I believe, is Cal Weathers, who's supposed to be, I think, either the son or the grandson of, Strip the King Weathers, who is the race car at the end of the first movie that Lightning, kind of helps off the track at the end of the movie to make sure that he he gets to finish his last race and everything. And there's another one there that are like, those are his two kind of main competitors. And we kind of see them going back and forth and like, who wins one race, who wins another race and everything. And we kind of see them, having fun with each other, where they are actually friends, where we see that the three of them are actually friends. McQueen is no longer the rookie that he was at the beginning, in the first movie. He's much more established. He's, like this, 7-time Piston Cup racing legend and everything. And, he's of course, still based out of Radiator Springs. We see Mater there. We see the rest, a bunch of the rest of the crew there. We see, Sally and, Guido and Luigi are still his pit crew and everything. Ramon does his paint jobs and everything. And, we see that and everything. And we just see how happy Lightning is. And he's still racing, he's still winning, he's still doing great. And then we're introduced to this new car, this new generation of racer that is this new racing type car that is called Jackson Storm. And he beats Lightning in this race, and Lightning is a little bit befuddled by this, and he's just like, it's like he's sad that he lost, but he's like not angry about it, kind of the way that he was really angry at the beginning of the first movie about like he didn't outright win the Piston Cup. He's like more curious as to who this new person is, and he that's Jackson Storm. He's this he's the new rookie and everything, and just like, oh well, and like he meets Jackson Storm, and Jackson Storm's a little bit of an a-hole. He's this very, he's not a bad racer. It's not that Jackson Storm is a bad racer. That's what he's designed to do, the same way that Lightning was designed to be a racer. But, he's kind of a way similar to the way that Lightning was at the beginning of the first movie. Although I would say that he's a bit more arrogant. Because, Lightning still at least had, like, respect for older racers and everything. Like, he still had respect for, like, Strip Weathers and, the older racers and everything. Jackson Storm doesn't really seem to do that, to a degree. And, we see this kind of montage of, like, McQueen keeps getting beat by Jackson. And, each race, there's more and more of these new gen racing cars added in. And, McQueen is just kind of befuddled by this, because like he sees his friends kind of being replaced around him. One, each new, car cars that he's raced against for years at this point are like retiring and everything, and he's just like getting a little befuddled by that. And like, we see Chick Hicks is in this as well. He's, the green car from the end of the first movie, and he has like this racing show and everything, and like him and this Natalie Certain, who's like this statistic analytical person and or car, and she like breaks down the fact that Jackson Storm is designed, he's more wind resistant and better aerodynamics, like all this other stuff that helps make him faster. And like, why he's faster than, Lightning McQueen and everything, why he keeps beating Lightning. And Lightning is just kind of still befuddled by this. He's still trying his hardest to win, of course. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is at like this last race of the season, Lightning gets passed by Storm, and then he gets passed by a bunch of the other ones. And he just he goes into his own head. And while he's trying to catch up, he unfortunately ends up losing control while he's driving, and he spins out, and he has this very violent rollover crash, which is actually because, like, of course, in the movie, it's very similar to the crash that we see happen to Strip Weathers to the King at the end of the first movie, and very similar to what we see end up later being, Doc Hudson's crash that he had, where it's, this end, not end over end, side roll crash and everything, where he gets a lot of damage and everything, and of course, they slow it down and everything, and it's very kind of visceral to a degree to watch, because this is, of course, a car that we've had this connection to for several years at this point in time between the other two movies. And, we like Lightning. And, we see him crash and everything. And, of course, we cut to 4 months later. And at this point in time, I'm actually going to switch the light back here. If it'll work. Come on. Flip. Turn blue. There we go. To represent blue, representing now Jackson Storm is the one on top as opposed to Lightning. And what we see is we cut to like 4 months later in Radiator Springs, where Lightning is recovering. And, he's just like got the primer paint on him. He's very dull colored and everything. Like he's been picked up from his crash and everything. He's still got like the 95 on his side, just so we know that that's Lightning. And we see him watching this old footage of Doc's races and of his own racing career and everything. And, he's, he kind of lives not in the museum, but I think that's kind of where like his main office is based out of, is like the Doc Hudson, the Hudson Hornet Museum that they built there for Doc. And of course, as this is as implied in Cars 2, unfortunately, Doc has passed away at that point in time, and by this point in time, it's several years later. So Doc definitely is, unfortunately, no longer around, and Lightning is kind of in this slump. And we see like all this stuff about like how proud he was of, he was so proud of Doc, and Doc was really proud of him and everything. And Sally Carrera, his, girlfriend, comes in, and she's just, trying to cheer him up and everything. And she kind of, makes him she like reverse psychologied him into like, kind of being like, no, I don't want to retire. And, he's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna race. So it's about 2 weeks before the beginning of the racing season, and he calls up his two sponsors, who are the ones that run Rusty's medicated bumper ointment, and that's Dusty and Rusty, who of course I've stated before is in the first movie, are of course voiced by Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers from Car Talk, and unfortunately, one of the Tappet brothers, I believe, don't ask me which one, had passed away, unfortunately, before they had filmed this movie, or before they got all the voice recordings from this movie. So a lot of the stuff that they have for that brother, and a lot of the stuff that they have for like Doc Hudson that they have in the movie, is stuff that's left over from like the first movie, or from any other like additional things that they would have recorded, like stock footage that they had, stock audio that they had. Which is, it's a nice way of still being able to like pay homage to those characters, and still be able to use them. And I like how they did that. And, Lightning is, talks to him, and he says like, okay, I'm gonna come down to wherever it is that they are for their racing. I don't remember where they have like the training center that they have. They have a training center, and they're just like, okay, great, get your tailgate down here, get your butt down here and everything, and we'll get you going. And, Lightning, thanks everybody that's in Radiator Springs that, of course, been, supporting him and everything for the whole time frame and everything. He's like, I'm sorry I've been such a, a grump lately and everything. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. It's like we see everybody who's in Radiator Springs is still there and happy and everything. And still very supportive of him. Mac, the pickup truck, of course, is there. And he gets this nice new paint job from Ramon and everything, which I like how there's so many different paint jobs that Lightning gets throughout the course of the movies, and Ramon's fun with that. And he gets that, and what ends up happening is him and Luigi and Guido head down to wherever the Rusty's training place is. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they get down there and it's like this big state-of-the-art facility, which Lightning was not expecting. And he gets there and he talks to Rusty and Dusty, and he finds out that, we actually sold Rusty's to this guy named Sterling, to this new owner. He apparently had like a mud flap empire or something like that. I don't know, but he's like really, really wealthy, like a billionaire type of thing. And he bought, Rusty's, and, like kind of the inside of the training area of the training building is kind of like this, homage shrine to a degree to Lightning. There's like this huge 95 there. There's like several other things that we see in the movie. And, Dusty and Rusty are just like, well, we had to do something, and like we didn't have the facilities that you needed to get you racing again, but Sterling could do that. And I was like, we kind of did this for you. And he's just like, he's like very grateful to them and everything. Like we see them pay off. And of course, the last bit that we hear them say in the movie, I believe, is, don't drive like my brother and don't drive like my brother, which is just, I kind of I didn't grow up listening to Car Talk with my dad, but a lot of the times that was what was airing on Sunday on NPR on our way to or from church. And, we would listen to that and everything. So I'm used to, how they act and everything. So it's just kind of nice seeing them throw that homage in there for the two brothers, for the Click and Cactus Habit brothers. I like how they did that. And of course, Lightning sees, all this state-of-the-art tech equipment and even like virtual racing and like all this other stuff that they have for like all these other racing, cars that are training to race. And he meets Cruz Ramirez, who's his trainer. And she is very much the typical kind of, the fitness instructor, trainer type character, or that's kind of what she appears to be. You're a little fluffy cloud, and, why are you sad? And, all this other stuff. And like she, kind of, motivates Lightning as well. And she puts him through all this different weird training and everything, where it's just, you're going to drive really slow to begin with. And, like, hangs him upside down to, get oil to places that oil hasn't been in a while. And even at one point, she, like, takes his tires off of him. Like, you've been driving for a while on these tires, but have you gotten to know them? What? Name your tires. No. Just like that type of stuff are just funny that way. And then Lightning just eventually wants to get to where he's doing the virtual racing, and he gets on the virtual racer, and then it's kind of revealed that like Lightning's top speed is like 195, 196 range, not quite breaking 100. But that range, and like Jackson Storm can go like over 210, even more than that. And Lightning ends up on the virtual training, and unfortunately it ends up going very badly, and he actually ends up crashing into the virtual training screen, which is just funny. That scene itself is just kind of funny, and then it just gets sad. And Lightning ends up then having to go and talk to Sterling, and Sterling ends up explaining to him, it's just like, I don't think that you're capable of racing anymore, of winning anymore. And instead of that, I want you to help, be part of the marketing, this brand and everything that we're developing with you and Rusty's and like all this other stuff. He's got like all this other merchandise that he wants to, have Lightning, be, a part of in regards to advertising and everything, including like a Lightning McQueen grill that looks like Lightning, and then you open it up. I'm like, okay, I can see the use of that. But why do cars need grills? Cars don't eat actual food. But it's funny anyway. And what ends up happening is Lightning is just like, no, just let me race in the first race of the season. If I win my first race, I get to decide what happens to my career. You win, I'll retire immediately and sell whatever you want me to sell. And Sterling is like, okay. And he sends Cruz to help Lightning with his training, and Lightning is just like, I'm gonna do training my way outside, not in this facility and everything. and him and Cruz, and we actually see a fair amount of Luigi and Guido in this movie, which is kind of nice because I really like Luigi and Guido because it makes sense for them to be there because like they're his pit crew, of course, because Luigi's always, of course, the one that changes his tires and everything. And, I mean, like Fillmore is usually the one that helps with like fuel and everything like that, but there's a lot of other ones that they help as part of his pit crew, of course. Ramon does his paints and everything, and what ends up happening is they go down to this beach and everything that's right outside the training center, and they go through the beach, and one of the things that had happened to Lightning when he first arrived at the training center was they put on this kind of like this smart skin, I guess. It's like helping like track his vitals and keep connected to him and everything like that while he's training and everything, so they can monitor everything. And it's like this really nice, cover that goes over the outside of him and everything. It's really nice looking. And what happens is, well, Lightning and Cruz and then Luigi and Guido are on the beach. Lightning ends up having to kind of start teaching Cruz how to drive because she can't track his speed unless she stays near him. And she has to race alongside him, drive alongside him while he's trying to get up to top speed and everything on the beach and everything. And he's like, because Lightning's really good at off-road racing because that's, Doc taught him how to do that and everything really well. And they're training on the beach, and it doesn't really, by the end of it, Cruz has kind of gotten used to, driving that way on the beach, and she really liked it. And what ends up happening is, Lightning is just like, I wasted a whole day on this beach, and now I got to do something. I gotta test how good I am at this. And they end up going to this place called Thunder Hollow, which is this kind of supposed to be like this backwater town to a degree. It's, well, not a town, but like a backwater racing thing where they do Crazy 8 racing, which is demolition derby racing, which is not what Lightning thought it was or what Cruz thought it was. And like Lightning's kind of in disguise. He's like covered in mud and everything. And, he's in the race, and there's this psychotic school bus called Miss Fritter, and Cruz is part of this as well. Like it's the two of them racing around and like having to deal with like all these other cars and everything that are like, there's an ambulance and there's the psychotic school bus, as I said, and there's like all this other stuff that they're using, and it's like it's all on mud and everything, and it's just dirty and filthy and not something I want to be a part of. And like we see them driving around and everything, and it's just really fun because like Lightning is actually kind of starting to help train Cruz a bit more. It's just go right to go left, go right to go left, same stuff that Doc had to teach Lightning way back in the beginning, and way back in the first movie that Doc kind of helped instill in Lightning, and now he's kind of helping instill in Cruz. And we get this these great fun shots of just like the two of them in the psychotic school bus, which is just like, oh god, this thing is, I swear to God, I hope this thing is somehow like based on Miss Frizzle's school bus from the Magic School Bus. I hope to God that there's someone at least thought of that when they thought of this school bus. And Cruz actually ends up being the one that wins. But then like the mud gets washed off Lightning, and everybody's just like, oh my God, it's Lightning McQueen. And, Lightning is like very embarrassed, and Cruz won, and she gets like this little trophy. And during this whole time frame, Jackson Storm keeps getting faster and faster, is doing more training and everything, laughing it up at Lightning. And the video of Lightning racing at the track ends up getting onto like Chick Hicks' show, and he's like making fun of Lightning and everything. Just the way that Chick Hicks is, because he's an a-hole. And Lightning actually ends up getting very angry at Cruz. And because Cruz is just like kind of happy about the fact that she's like, I won this trophy and it was fun. And then Lightning just ends up kind of blowing up at her in the back of Mack while they're trying to drive back to the racing center. And he like blows up at her, and he's just like, I spent however long in your training simulation, blah 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 blah, nothing helping, and then I spent a day on the beach, and then this, and I'm not getting any faster, I'm getting slower. And I almost got killed by a psychotic school bus. And like he's just like very angry and very upset at her. And it is kind of a bit of a flashback to like the way that Lightning got very angry in the first movie at times. But it's like you kind of sympathize with him because it's just like I understand, because it's like he doesn't really want to have to like take care of all this merchandising stuff and everything, but racing is what he loves to do. So you can kind of see why Lightning's, angry about this and everything. And Cruz, tells Mac to stop, and she gets off the truck, and she kind of yells back at Lightning, and she's like, you want to know why I'm a trainer and not a racer? Because she's like, I grew up watching cars like you. I grew up watching you and, Strip Weathers and blah, 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 all these other ones. I grew up watching all of you. And I was told my entire life that I can never be a race car because that is not what I was designed to do. And I was told again and again and again that was not what I was supposed to do. So I became a trainer. And it's kind of like the live vicariously through your students type of thing. And she's like, I spent my whole life being told that. And tonight I finally got to race. Because before, the first time I had been on a racetrack to try to race, I got scared. And she does this great speech, and I can't match the speech, but she just does this great job, this great speech to Lightning, and she's just very angry at him, and she drives off. And Lightning ends up, he feels very bad for the way that he treated her and everything, which he should feel bad for the way that he treated her, but he's like, because it's also Lightning being angry at himself is also what's going on. And what happens is Lightning ends up calling Mater. And they talk, and Lightning is telling Mater, it's just this might be my last season, and I'm not ready for that. I don't want to stop this. I don't want to stop training. I don't want to stop racing. I don't know what to do. And he's just very sad and everything. And Mater suggests, what would Doc tell you to do? And Lightning's like, well, Doc's not around anymore. And and Mater's like, well, someone had to teach Doc. And he's like, oh, that is true. And he's just Lightning kind of, because he was this Doc historian type of thing because of the museum and everything. And even before that, he knew a lot about Doc. And he's like, oh, yeah, Doc had this mentor named Smokey in Thomasville, which is not too far from where they were. And from where Lightning currently was for the training center. And he's just like, well, I could go and find him if he's not dead. And, Lightning thanks, Mater and says, it's like, I'll see you guys in Florida, of course, for the last race, for the first race of the season and everything. And Lightning then, him and Mac and Luigi and Guido, they're two kind of in the background. Lightning ends up, they find Cruz on the way back to, and they're just he can, he apologizes, the trophy had gotten broken, and he fixed the trophy, and he's apologizing to her, and he's just I need my trainer, and he kind of makes a fool of himself a little bit in the process of doing it, because he's he is actually genuinely trying to apologize to her, because he's gotten angry at Mater before in the second movie at times, and of course this is he's actually genuinely sorry. And that's the thing about Lightning, is it's we know that he is sorry, because it's to a degree, it's the cars have the same human emotions that we do, and Lightning is he's not 100% only angry at Cruz, he's also angry at himself, because he feels he's getting slower, and he can't keep up with what's going on, and he apologizes to Cruz, and he kind of explains some of that, and the fact that it was I'm sorry that I got angry at you, and that I said what I'm sorry for what I said when I was angry and everything, and and I need my trainer to come with me, and we're going to go to Thomasville, and we're going to find the guy that trained, that helped train Doc. And she's like, okay, fine. And, the two, they travel to, Doc's hometown of Thomasville, where it's they're still really proud of having Doc there. And we see all these really old signs and everything from when Doc was racing. And it's a throwback to when NASCAR, that type of racing, Formula One racing and things like that was going on when it was first going on in the 50s and the 60s. And a lot of the time, they even reference the fact in the movie that, a lot of these cars were designed to run moonshine, that it started out as people racing to run moonshine. So Dukes of Hazzard style stuff, racing and, getting the moonshine to different places and everything. And, and it's kids don't know what moonshine is, but, adults are just I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. For that time frame, which is genuinely how that happened, how the cars came into being. for why they had to get so fast and everything, since they had to be able to outrun the cops that were either on horses or on, in the cop cars. And they get to Thomasville, and they get to this old track that that Doc had once raced on. I think I don't know if it's the same track that like Doc had his accident on, but it's one of the tracks. And Lightning and Cruz get there, and like she keeps saying, I was like, well, are we going to be able to find the guy that trained Doc? Is he even still alive? And like he's like, well, I don't know, but we got to at least try. And like they end up getting onto the racetrack, and they kind of end up like driving around the racetrack a little bit, and then out comes this old car, and his name is Smokey, and he was Doc's mentor and friend way back when. And he like knows exactly who Lightning is, but he kind of plays up that he doesn't. And Helio meets Cruz and Lightning and like Luigi and Guido, and then they end up going into like the town, and they go into this kind of dive bar type of a place, and they end up meeting these other three racers. One of them is this female racer that is, which is like these three cars that they have here that are actually based on real people. A lot of the cars in the Cars movies are actually based on real life people, like in these cases, real racers that had been around during the same time frame that Doc would have been around, so the 50s into the 60s era that they have for that. And like, these guys were like contemporaries of Doc, like they raced with him and alongside him and against him. There's one that's like he's based off of a female driver. There's another one that's based off of an African American driver, because unfortunately during the time frame that they would have been racing, there was still a lot of the segregation in the South was still very segregated at that point in time, and a lot of the areas for the NASCAR stuff was in the South. So, it was, he didn't have his own pit crew. He had to have his own sons. There's whole sections of the bonus features on the movie where they talk about these real life racers and everything, like how much these cars, the racing cars are based on real racers, real people. And like Smokey is kind of based off of this guy that was like this mechanic that had like helped soup up a lot of the cars and everything. And like they explain that, oh yeah, Lightning, we know exactly who you are and everything, and we knew Doc and everything. Like he's like really enjoyed talking to them because he gets to hear stuff about Doc that he hadn't really gotten to hear either for a while or in a long time or ever. And he ends up that what ends up happening is they end up going in, or Lightning says something along the lines of, it's just like, Doc, it's just like, I was really happy to have Doc as my trainer and my mentor and everything, but I just don't know, like racing was the best part of his life, and best part of Doc's life, and it's just like, and Smokey ends up giving him this look, and he's just like kind of the whole car version of come with me, and like he takes Lightning and Cruz and Luigi and Guido by extension into like his garage, and we see that he explains that after Doc had his crash back in 60 whatever that he had his crash, I didn't hear from him for like 50 years. He left, he went to Radiator Springs, and I didn't hear anything from him. And then when he met you and started training you, I started getting so many letters, newspaper articles, clippings, so many things. And he was just so proud of you. So, he shows Lightning all these letters that Doc had sent him and like how proud Doc was of Lightning. And he's just like, yeah, racing was something Doc loved to do. But he also loved getting to help train you and mentor you and seeing how far you'd come from being, from the way that you had been when you first arrived in town to what you became and, what you are now. And Lightning really takes that to heart. And he was, it's like we kind of see how much he had missed Doc. Because we keep getting like little flashbacks with Doc and everything, where they use like some of the older recordings of Paul Newman that he had done for Doc for the original one and for some of like the Mater's Tall Tales that they had. And, so we keep getting flashbacks with Doc, which is nice. And Lightning, Lightning remembering how much fun he had with Doc and how proud he was to get to work with Doc. And what ends up happening is, Lightning ends up asking them, can you help train me? And, Dusty says, or not Dusty, Smokey says, well, one of the things you have to do is you have to accept that you're not the racer you once were. You have to allow that. And then you have to figure out the right training methods to be able to outsmart and outdrive Jackson Storm. And then they start training him. And it's not just Dusty or Smokey that's helping train him. It's also the other 3 cars that are helping as well. And like, they're cheering him on and everything. And, Cruz gets dragged into this. She gets kind of, they like get something done with her muffler. So now she's, a lot louder and everything for driving. And, they put like, Jackson Storm's number on her and everything to motivate Lightning. And, they do lots of this random training that like kind of doesn't make any sense at first, but what ends up happening is like they do all this weird training where it's like one of them is like Luigi on the back of like this hay bale thing, like throwing like packs of hay at like straw at like Lightning to make him dodge and everything to make him work on his reflexes. Because Smokey points out the fact that it's just like both of you are in a demolition derby. And yet neither of you have any dents or scars or scratches or anything like that on you from the demolition derby. That's impressive. That shows that you have really good, agility and everything, really good senses at that. And like, so he's training at like, Cruz is training with him, and then they do this moment where they're, because like it's a callback to the cows, like the tractors are cows in this world. And so it's a callback to that where they have like this herd of tractors. And like Cruz and Lightning are like in the tractors, and like they kind of make the tractors kind of stampede a little bit, and Lightning and Cruz have to like zip in and out of the car, zip in and out of the tractors and everything. And so we see that, like we see them driving at night at one point on like a moonless night or something like that with their headlights off, because like you can't have your headlights on because then the cops will see you while you're driving. And if you got moonshine with you, then that's not good. And like they're like, driving through the trees and like, driving through the forest. And during this time frame, and it's this great moment that we see in the movie, because I guess they're driving, Lightning's like the smart skin that he had put onto him earlier slowly starts getting like rips in it and everything. And like at one point, like he just like, because he's just having a great time racing. Like Cruz is having a great time racing too, and everything. Like the older cars are like having a great time helping them, and everything. And Lightning ends up like the smart skin or whatever that was on him gets like ripped off, so he's back to his like the coloring that like Ramon gave him and everything, which is really nice. Shows that and everything. It shows more of Lightning's true colors and everything, what he really wants to represent. And they do that. And what ends up happening after that is like they're doing training around the tracks with lots of driving and everything. And it's just like, you're going to have like a time constraint and everything. Like, we have to do all this other training. And, we keep cutting back to like where the Florida Raceway is, where like all the cars are still arriving and everything. And, the racers keep showing up, and like Lightning's the last one that's going to show up and everything. And they're just like, what's going on with Lightning? It doesn't matter. He's not going to show up or whatever is what everybody keeps thinking. And, Lightning's doing all of his training with Cruz and everything. And what ends up happening is, Lightning, he's still having problems. He's still having trouble with, like, what's going on with the way that he's acting with, not the way that he's acting, but with the way that he's still driving. He's like, learned a lot of this other training with like, using like the backdraft of a car to like help drag you along, different things like that, getting into your opponent's head and everything like that. And we see that with like the way that he's training with Cruz and with Smokey and the other racers. And what ends up happening is, Lightning, he still can't quite beat Cruz in like the training races that they're doing, but he's like, he knows that they have to get to Florida, and they head down there, and, we see Sally and Mater and the rest of the crew there and everything. Like, they're really happy to see Lightning. And, Jackson Storm is there, and he's, making fun of Lightning again, just like, you're the last to show up, so you're going to be the last one in the race, and, blah, 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 blah. And, Sterling shows up, and he kind of like berates Cruz for like, why are you at this race and everything? And he's like telling her that she has to go home, head back to the racing center to get whoever ready for the next race or whatever. And what ends up happening is, Lightning is, going around the track with everybody else, doing his racing and everything. And, he got like a little bit, Smokey showed up and like he's got like the headset on and kind of being Lightning's coach and everything, to kind of help encourage Lightning and everything. And we see like the other 3 cars like in the crowd watching, and we just see how much all the support that Lightning has behind him, because even his fans still have support for him, and so do like the fans that he's had over the years. They still support him. We saw the people from Radiator Springs. I kind of would have been nice if they threw in maybe a shot or 2 of some cars from Cars 2, but they didn't. Kind of like, we're just going to ignore that Cars 2 ever happened, is kind of the way that they kind of hold that. But what ends up happening is, Lightning kind of realizes that he's like, I can't beat Cruz. I can't beat Storm. And like he's keep having like the flashbacks to like the him talking with Cruz and everything, like the way that she, how he liked, racing against her and training with her. And, Sterling had like sent Cruz off, and like Lightning calls her back in, and he like gets off the track at one of the pit stops, and he tells like Ramon to, put the number on her. Put the 95 number on Cruz and everything. And she's just like befuddled about what's going on. Like Sterling's very angry about this. And Lightning tells Cruz, no, I don't need to be out there. You need to be out there. I can't beat Jackson Storm, but you can. And, they get the 95 painted on her. And like Smokey explains it, just like, it doesn't matter just driving. It's the number that has to be out there. And, Cruz goes out and she gets she gets going. And, during this time, it keeps kind of cutting back and forth, because it's like she starts gaining momentum and speed, and, slowly making her way up to, slowly through the ranks of the race. And, until she's like, within the top 10 and, and everything. And, Lightning, because she keeps kind of having moments where she keeps panicking a little bit, and Lightning keeps, telling Smokey to tell her, oh, pretend you're a little fluffy cloud, and, remember that you're, find the window and like the tractors. And she like keeps remembering all this other stuff that she's done while she was training with Lightning and with Smokey, and helping Lightning train. And we see that, and she she starts gets up into the top 10, and she's like really close behind Jackson Storm in regards to beating him. And what ends up happening is, at one point, Lightning just tells Smokey to say something that's so ridiculous in regards to like motivating Cruz. Smokey just goes, I am not saying that. If you want to say that, you can say that. And like then we cut back, and Lightning is the one that has the headset on, and he's the one that's like, being her crew chief or trainer and everything, and motivating her. And I really love how they do that. And what ends up happening is, I just love how they do that with Cruz. And what happens is, Storm actually kind of tries to, get inside Cruz's head. And Lightning points out of like, he wouldn't have done that if you weren't already in his head. You're someone that he sees as a threat right now. And he doesn't like that. And like, Cruz then tries to gets into Jackson Storm's head, and like she like kind of follows his backdraft and everything, and then like she like has her smartphone or whatever like shout out the numbers of how fast they're going and everything to like mess with Storm. And at one point on the last lap, Storm actually tries to like run Cruz into the wall. And earlier in the movie, we'd seen a thing where it's like in a flashback where it's like the rest of the racers or the older racers talking with Lightning and Cruz about Doc, that at one point Doc almost got ran into the wall, and like that he did this pushes up on the wall and then like flips over the other car and then lands on the other side and then still wins the race. And Cruz basically does that. She flips over Storm, rolls kind of over him, and then lands on the other side, and then she ends up being the one that wins. And that means we get to change this to yellow. And she wins the race. And Lightning is just so proud of her, so over the top with how much she's, just so proud of how well she won and how well she did. And like everybody else is really happy for her. Jackson Storm is not happy by any measure because he just lost to literally a rookie that has never raced before. And he's just like befuddled by this, but like the rest of the bunch of the other newer gen cars are like really nice to Cruz and like congratulate her on winning. And she wins the race, and Sterling is very angry. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah. He is like, he tries to like then butter up to her, and she's like, no, I quit. I'm going to be a racer now. And she's perfectly fine with that. And what happens is, Sterling then looks at Lightning, and he's just like, well, you lost, so now you're going to, you show up on Monday. You got photo ops you got to do for all the stuff you got to help me sell. And, like, Lightning is perfectly willing to do that. And then it's shown up on the screen that because Lightning had raced as, the number 95 car, that technically both him and Cruz won the race. And, that kind of then null and voids out, Lightning having to deal with Sterling. It's just fun. And what ends up happening is the guy that runs Dynaco comes over, Tex, who's like this, he's like Dynaco oil company and everything that's very big in the first movie and is apparently still very big at this point in time, comes in, and he looks at, Cruz, and he's just like, well, we'd love to have her racing for us and everything. And then like him and Sterling, and it's revealed that Dynaco ends up buying, not just like Rusty's, but also like that company or whatever from Sterling or whatever. So that means that now Cruz and Lightning now work for Dynaco as their racers. And we got to a little while later in Radiator Springs, and like Cruz now has this new paint job that is still yellow, but she's got like the Dynaco blue colors and everything, and she looks great. She's got the number 51. And I think we see like Smokey might be there too, and like it's just like Lightning said that Doc would be proud of her to have that number, and I think Doc would be very proud of her to have that number. And then we see Lightning come in, and he's got like a brand new paint job. He is now the blue that Doc was, and it's the fabulous Lightning McQueen, which I love that new paint job that they give on him. And he just looks great. And I wish we got to see more of that in the movie, honestly. I wish we got to see more of him in that paint job in the movie, but it's great seeing him with it at the end. With the fabulous Lightning McQueen and that great Hudson Hornet blue that they have on him. And, he's like really happy, and like him and Cruz kind of have this like little exhibition race and everything around, the dirt track area by Radiator Springs, where like Doc and Lightning would race. And Dynaco bought Rusty's, and now Cruz is going to be the racer, and Lightning is kind of going to be her crew chief, her trainer, and everything. So it's just like they both work for now they both work for Dynaco, and now they're both really happy, and Rusty's is still kind of around and everything. And then we kind of cut through, that's the end of the movie. It's them driving off to race, and we get like the end credit stuff, or type of stuff where we see a bunch of the other people from cars racing around, or the other racers and everything. We see this great picture of Lightning and Doc, and then Lightning and Cruz together, which I really like how they did that, to show it's like one generation passing into the next and then passing into the next. And I really love how they did that. And we see like kind of the end credits, over the credits we see like these different funny images of like the Radiator Springs crew, like around some of the other race cars and just having fun and everything. And apparently there is a post-credit song, or post-credit scene, but I didn't watch it, but it involves Mater and his iPad, so yeah, it's fun. So that just doesn't go well. And then we of course have the cast. We of course pretty much Owen Wilson as Lightning McQueen. Of course we have Cristela Alonzo as Cruz Ramirez, which I really like. And I've actually heard Cristela Alonzo a couple of times on, there's another NPR show that my dad and I listen to called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's a NPR news quiz where they kind of make fun of the news and everything. and she's like one of the people that comes on every now and then and gets like asked questions about the news and makes fun, jokes about it. We have Armie Hammer as Jackson Storm. He's in a lot of hot water right now, if I remember correctly, for Armie Hammer. We have Bonnie Hunt as Sally Carrera, of course, as Lightning's girlfriend. We have Chris Cooper as Smokey. We have Nathan Fillion as Sterling. Love him as Castle and as Captain in Firefly. We have Larry the Cable Guy, of course, as Mater. We have Tony Shalhoub as Luigi. We have Leah Delaria as Miss Fritter, who's the psychotic school bus. We have Kerry Washington as Natalie Certain, who's the statistics person. We have Cheech Marin, of course, as Ramon. We have Jennifer Lewis as Flo. Of course, pretty much all the rest of the Radiator Springs cast came back and reprised their roles, of course, which is nice. Pretty much anybody else that had already played one of the characters kind of came back for the most part. In the bonus features, which this was something that I had actually ended up talking with my mom about before I ended up watching Cars 3 again for this, was I've been watching a lot of Disney documentaries on Disney Plus recently. One about Howard Ashman called Howard, where they talk about, and of course Howard Ashman is of course the one that did the music for The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and part of Aladdin with Alan Menken. And did the music for Little Shop of Horrors and like all this other stuff. Great, love Howard Ashman. And watch that. And there's like a couple of other ones that I've watched about behind the scenes about different Disney eras and everything. And one of the things that they had pointed out in Cars 3 was that the story is kind of the car story kind of is literally kind of like also portraying what's happening in the studio at the time, because it's Lightning is this race car that grew up watching Doc Hudson, and then Cruz is this car that kind of grew up watching Lightning and knew about Doc and like all this other stuff, and now she's the one that's going to be the racer, and these new gen racers that are coming in. And then with Pixar, it's the people that started Pixar, they grew up watching the like original Disney movies, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the golden age of Disney animation. They watched all of that stuff. They were kind of there. Pixar was kind of there to a degree during the Disney Renaissance and everything, because that's when Toy Story came out, was during the Disney Renaissance. And even with Disney animators in general and everything, we see this where it's with Disney it was Disney and his first animators, and then the Nine Old Men, and then new animators come in because they grew up with the Disney movies, and now it's these newer animators that are like basically people like me that grew up watching the Disney Renaissance and the original Pixar movies and like all this other stuff, that they were kids when they watched like the first Cars movies or watched Toy Story, and now they're adults and now they're getting to work on Cars and then Toy Story 4, Cars 3 and like Toy Story 4 and like all these other Pixar animated movies and even Disney animated movies that, and just Disney movies in general, just movies in general. It's these new people that are coming in that grew up on the previous generations, that grew up watching what the previous generations did. And I love how that is very much kind of mirrored in the movie. And that it's not saying that what they did was wrong, because it's, Cruz learned from Lightning and Lightning learned from Doc, and then Doc kind of learned from Smokey. So it's just like this handing down of techniques. And with Disney animation, it is kind of the same way around with like animation in general. It's, you see what came before you and you see where you can improve on it. And, Lightning has to learn to accept that with himself, with what he can do. And then he has to admit that, okay, I can't do this anymore, but I can help someone else who loves it just as much as I do to get to that point where they can now do it themselves. And that's what happens. And, as much as you might want to say that Walt Disney was not the best person in the world, he was an amazing creative mind. And at Pixar, we have the same thing. Amazing creative minds that just give and give and give to the world of art and entertainment. And I love it. And, I love how they do that. And it's just great seeing that. So I wanted to add that on here at the end, because I just like how that's like mirrored in the movie. So I went off on a tangent, but I don't care. So yeah, go and watch some of the other Disney. Watch Cars 3, yes, but also watch some of the other Disney behind the scenes stuff that they have, like Howard about Howard Ashman. Waking Sleeping Beauty is another great one about like the Disney Renaissance era. So I still have to watch The Boys, which is about the Sherman Brothers that did the music for like Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Jungle Book and like a bunch of other Disney movies and stuff like that. So, go watch those as well. There's also Star Wars stuff there too if you want to go watch that, or watch Marvel stuff that's just behind the scenes. Go watch that too. But yeah, so that's what I have for this one. I want to say I think Coco is the next one. I think Coco is the next one that I'll be reviewing. But in the next couple of weeks or so, I'm going to be going to a musical on like one of the Saturday nights, and that's going to be fun with my mom and my dad and my nieces, my younger niece and nephew, and like go through that and everything. So I don't know if that weekend I'll be getting a video recorded or not. But then I'm also going to be going to a Van Gogh exhibit soon. And then I'll be doing a video about that as well, just about kind of Van Gogh and how much, I like Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh and everything. So I'll go from there. But some of it might get, like, there might be a week in there where, like, a Pixar movie gets skipped, and then I'll get back to the Pixar movies where it's just like, there's no Pixar movie on this Friday, then I'll go back to the Pixar movie or whatever. Plus, I gotta go see Thor Love and Thunder soon. Got so many movies I have to watch. And work and do videos. And take care of the dog, and watch other anime. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.
You can't turn back the clock, kid, but you can wind it up again.